Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Podcast with your host, Jeff Lopes. Jeff has over 2 decades experience as a serial entrepreneur, building brands like Kimura from his home basement to a multi-million-dollar global brand that has sold over 250,000 pairs of boxing gloves. Jeff's here to educate, guide, and drive you on the process of bringing your ideas and dreams to reality with the inspiring stories from some of the top business minds.
Welcome to episode number 55 of the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on this episode Paul Getter. When it comes to social media, when it comes to digital marketing, Paul is the king of kings. This guy knows his stuff. Great story, how he built his company from ground zero up to one of the biggest digital marketing companies in the world. We're going to get to know Paul a little bit better today. Sit back, everybody, and enjoy this great podcast. We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. I am super stoked to have on today Paul Getter. Paul, say hello to everybody, brother.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jeff. I appreciate you connecting with me and having me on this show. Looks like you're doing amazing things.
It's slowly happening. Everything's slowly happening, but it's all about networking and all about people giving opportunities. And you got 1 million followers. You could have said, Jeff, like, hey, you're new. Call me back in a year. Just you opening up the doors. That means the world, right? So I always start off our podcast by letting our guests just get a little rundown of currently where they are in their career and what they're doing. And then we just let the conversation flow. And I got a ton of stuff. I was checking up on you and from doing social media for your church. I want to talk about a lot of stuff today. So let's start off just, what are you up to now and with your company, Internet American New York? So get a little rundown on all this company and how it all started up and all that.
Yeah. So again, thanks for having me on the show here, Jeff. It's my privilege to be here. So again, my name's Paul Getter, also known as the Internet Marketing Nerd. I've had the privilege over the years to work with some of the top online entrepreneurs, guys like Ty Lopez, Grant Cardone, Bob Proctor, Les Brown, A-list celebrities, Fortune 500 companies, and really the list could go on and on. I've been blessed to work with some amazing people. And it started out just kind of like every other business, at home with my laptop, and has evolved to one of the probably largest internet marketing agencies out there. We have several different divisions, work with entrepreneurs, work with personal fitness trainers, brick and mortar companies. And, again, we do paid traffic, we do social media growth. A lot of things that we work with is in the course consulting, mentoring type of division. But yeah, man, it's been amazing. It's been amazing.
When did this company come inception? When did it all begin?
So I'm going to say about 10 years ago, and it was never like, hey, I'm going to launch this company. It was kind of like, hey, I got to pay the bills. Yeah. What can I do? And so it's just kind of one of those things where I was helping people manage their social media. I was kind of figuring out how to do ads, SEO, build websites, and,
you jumped on right before the whole cuss, right before the uphill roar, right? So you're one of the pioneers in that aspect 10 years ago. I was just reading this and we're talking this prior to going on air. What's the story with your church? That's how it all, is it somewhat how it all began with social media? You want to get into that? That's a cool story.
So one of my friends was going off to college, and they said to me, they're like, Paul, you need to get on Facebook, so we can stay in contact. And again, Facebook was not really popular back then. It was just kind of, people were playing around with it. And so finally I caved in. I remember looking at it, I'm like, this is like games for kids and stuff, and I don't want to waste my time. So I caved in. I set up a Facebook page, and I remember going through there, and some businesses had Facebook pages. And I thought, maybe I'll set up a Facebook page for our church. And so I set up a Facebook page for our church, put some pictures on there, little information. And I remember a couple weeks later, this new family came to our church, and I went up to him, got talking with him. I'm like, well, where did you hear about us? And they said, we saw you on Facebook. And it was like a light bulb went on. I'm like, whoa, these are real people They really saw me on Facebook, and they are really here. And again, it was like a light bulb went off. I'm like, businesses need to be doing Facebook. And so I started kind of progressing where I'd reach out to local businesses, whether it was a realtor, whether it was a mom and pop restaurant, and ask them, hey, can I help you with your social media? And that's where it kind of started out as like, this is a business opportunity.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So prior to your company, what were you doing? Were you an entrepreneur? Were you working for somebody?
Well, yeah. So I think even as an early child, I kind of had this entrepreneur mind. You know, I was a kid going around mowing people's grass and raking leaves, delivering newspapers, doing whatever I can. And a lot of people that, you know, mom and dad didn't give you money. You try to do whatever you can to make
100%,
money.
Yeah.
Most of the times it was not mischievous ways of making money, you know, most of the times. But so I graduated college with a degree in theology, which for those that don't know is actually the study of God. And so I learned, you know, theology, Bible studies, and things like that. And when I graduated from college, I realized that that was not the very best marketable degree. I remember filling out an application for a company, and they're like, "Oh, you have a degree in theology. Is that the study of rocks?" I'm like, "No, that's geology." And so I worked a lot of different places, man. I worked at restaurants. I worked at grocery stores. I worked at department stores. I was working wherever I could to make money. And before kind of jumping into the entrepreneur field full time, I was working at a company as a sales position in a merchant processing company. And
was that your first experience with sales, doing sales?
No. So here's what's funny. When I was in high school, I worked at a telemarketing company where I sold timeshares. Matter of fact, so I was probably
one of the hardest things to sell.
But I was good at it. At 15, 16 years old, I kind of had a little bit deeper voice, so people thought I was a little bit older. And I still remember the script is like, "Hey, this is Paul Getter from Charter Club in Naples Bay, and you've won 3 days and 4 nights to a trip to the Bahamas." And that was our pitch. And so I sold people visits to a timeshare where they could get prizes and stuff. But yeah,
was it one of those timeshares where everybody get a sale, they'd ring a bell, and the whole 9 yards in the office?
Exactly. Yeah, it was like one of those places where if you went and visited the timeshare, you would get a free trip to the Bahamas. And
but that free trip is you'd have to fly out somewhere. You have to
you have to pay all the taxes and the fees.
Do you
right.
not those little moments in your life, and I always say this to entrepreneurs, one thing I always tell every entrepreneur, even just in general, every young person I talk to, and I'm 43, and doesn't matter how old you are, if you're going to learn master one thing, it's sales. Sales are probably the most important thing you could ever master, because whether you're doing an interview, you're constantly selling something, whether it's yourself or anything. So do you feel like those moments, and I've been through it, because when I was 19, I ran a company called Millennium Bodies, which was a consulting personal training business. And I had a mentor, and this gentleman, Steve, was a sales guru. And this is, 19, 20 years ago. He was teaching me sales tactics that lately I've been studying a lot of NLP. And it's crazy with your eye movement, your commonality, stuff like that. This guy was teaching me 20-something years ago, which was sales tactics. It's insane. And it's so critical. Do you find that all those little things you learn sales pivoted your career?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So think of this: at 14, 15 years old, maybe 16, it was an office of, I think, 20 people. I was one of the top salespersons, telemarketers, which everybody hates telemarketers.
Yeah, of course.
But that's what I did. And I learned so much. Number one, you learn how to take no. And I remember them teaching me things like, hey, you don't give up until you get 5 no's. And you don't accept no. You're like, no is one step closer to a yes.
Yes.
And so it gave me kind of like a thick skin to be able to take
100%.
that rejection.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's any career that gets a bunch of rejection, it is a telemarketer.
Oh, what a question.
I remember you call people up, they'd cuss you out. You call up people and they'd just be angry.
They'd hang up on you right away.
Yeah, they hang up on you. But, if I can make 3 or 4 sales a shift, I was making good money.
Yeah, 100%. So when you started college, what were you doing hustling wise? Were you working on the side during college, or is it focused on school?
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of school, but I worked with the school, and this is years ago when I was in college. They didn't have this fancy thing called the internet, the interweb.
the good old days. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 46.
So we're very
Actually,
close.
I'm 45. See, I'm so old. I can't remember how old I am. I'll be 46 in November. So
we're only a few years apart. So yeah, we're from the same time. When I was talking about this yesterday, this is pure off topic. I was talking about this yesterday with somebody because my kids are 14 and 12, and my son just starting to, now he's walking home by himself. He's got a key. We got his phone, 12 years old, and he's walking home. And my wife has this, it's called a Life app. And she's following him, tracking him on her phone, walking home because he has his phone. And I'm like, and we were talking about this, and I was talking to my friend about this. I'm like, when I was 10 years old, my dad, blue collar, 9 to 5, worked at Ford Motors, 2 weeks day, 2 weeks night. 2 weeks a month, I wouldn't see him. My mom worked at a daycare as a manager. She would be working late shifts. And I would come home, walk 6-7 blocks home, open up the door, grab a peanut butter sandwich, let the dog out, grab my BMX bike and off playing ball hockey or base. I'd be gone. And I wouldn't come back till nighttime. There was no phones. There was no contact. There was no nothing. Yeah. And it was a great childhood.
That was, I remember, again, we share stories like that and people would think, oh, you came from, you were neglected as a child or something like that. But I remember the same thing. It's like, I would get my bicycle and I would ride from my house to the beach was like, 6 miles.
Yeah.
But me and my brother, we would ride our bikes 6 miles by ourselves to go to the beach.
Yeah.
And, and that was normal. We would stay out late, of course. Yeah. No cell phones or tracking you or anything like that.
No, the good old days. Good old days. Yeah. So I sidetracked you there. So we're talking about college. You were working with the college, you said?
Yeah. So I was actually, the college was, again, this is pre-internet, which I feel like, back when I was a kid, we didn't have this interweb type thing, but we had bulletin board systems. You remember that when it was bulletin board systems? Yeah. And you had to dial up the phone number and and all that stuff. So I was helping the college set up a bulletin board system and a network within the college. And this is a Bible college, so there was no computer programming classes or anything like that. It wasn't, you didn't go to YouTube and learn from it because there was no YouTube. Yeah. And so I remember one of the professors, he's like, hey, I found this at the library, maybe this will help. And so he gave me this big old thick book, and I learned computer programming by actually reading the book and, typing on the computer. So that was
your first intro.
My first intro to the nerd life.
When did a bow tie come into effect? Because that's a huge part of who you are. I see all your photos, and you're always well dressed, and you're always looking sharp. Yeah, that's the first thing. I ought to be honest. I was swiping through how I originally found you. I was swiping. I heard your name in the past, but I was swiping through Instagram, and I think it was an ad or something popped up, and it was your the way you're dressed, your bow tie, your blue jacket. And I'm like, this guy, and I went and I checked you and I started just researching, like, oh, this guy's awesome. I started following you, and I was like, so it's obviously a part of who you are now. When did this all start? Yeah, so I've always dressed with the bow tie and everything like that. No, not the bow tie, not the bow tie. So when did that start? Here's the interesting story about the bow tie is, some of my friends, they joke around with me because the glasses are not a fashion statement. The glasses are, I'm blind without them. So it's not the brand. It's Yeah, ditto here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, and I've always liked, jackets like this that are kind of distinct, different and stuff.
Yeah.
I remember I went to church one time and one of my friends was like, bro, man, you look just like a nerd. And I had the shoes, like I have shoes, like the wingtip shoes and everything that.
Yeah.
He's like, man, you're such a nerd and stuff. He's like, you just need a bow tie. And so I'm like, okay. So the next week I showed up with a bow tie on. And of course he's laughing at me. He's like, yeah, bro, you got the nerd look. Perfect. It's perfect. He's like, you got the shoes, the bow tie, the glasses and everything. He's like, he's like, it looks pretty sharp. I like the bow tie. And so I wore it again. And then I just kept wearing it. And I was like, I like.
How many do you have in your collection now?
Oh man, more than I can count. But it started out as a joke.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to wear it just to be funny to him so he can make more fun of me.
We were talking prior to going on air. A big part of who you are is the whole superhero world here. When did that all start? What age did that start in comics and all that stuff like that? Until this day, do you still collect comics?
So I don't still collect comics, but I started collecting comics very, very young, 7, 8 years old. I collected comics. I have a large comic book collection now. Yeah. Now what I collect
memorabilia
things. Normally I'm in my office. They're doing construction there today, so you don't get the effect. I call it the nerd cave. Like you got an awesome Jeff Knows Inc. studio there. Mine is a nerd cave, and I have Iron Man there. I have Captain America shield, and then I have Marvel posters all over the wall. So that's kind of like I graduated from comics to now the movie paraphernalia and things like that.
So, it's because you have a little bit more money now. So now
So
it gets expensive, those things, huh?
Yeah, they can be. So like my movie posters are signed by all the actors and Stan Lee and cool things like that. So that's what happens.
So you go to all the so you're probably hardcore missing the expo this year.
FanFest,
yeah. I take we call it FanFest here, which is kind of like the Comic-Con. We have it here, which is a massive. It's got hundreds of venues. I mean, sellers and dealers, and it has artist alleys, which I absolutely love. We have it's like when we have it once a year, it's for 4 days, 5 days. And it's right before the kids hit school. And I always take both my kids. And this is like, we've been doing this for 6 years. It's the last trip before we hit the school. We do our fan expo. And this year, obviously, everything's canceled with the pandemic and stuff, which kind of sucks, right? But yeah. So what's your favorite movie of all time? Hero-wise.
Movie.
And what's your favorite superhero? I'm just going off topic now. What's your favorite superhero and what's your favorite movie?
Iron Man is my favorite and probably one of my favorite movies.
Did you shed a tear when he died?
No. I'm able to separate reality from fiction. But he'll be back. I think he's going to be back.
Yeah, I think so too.
But so I think Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie, that was really groundbreaking when it comes to like the special effects.
You're talking with Robert Downey Jr., right?
Yeah.
All of them were pretty intense. They're really good. Yeah. So that's your go-to hero.
Yeah. Iron Man. Second would probably be Captain America. I love that. Kind of the first Captain America was like the little kid that was bullied. And
so you're more Marvel than DC.
Oh yeah. More Marvel than DC for sure.
Okay, very, very cool. I like my DC. I like my Superman. I like my Batman. The Dark Knight series was pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think they're coming out with a new Dark Knight.
Yeah. I don't know what the actor.
I like them, but yeah. So you have to admit that when it comes to the DC movies, they were a little bit behind when it came. Very behind.
I found the best one of all of them, which was you could compare, would have to be Aquaman.
Aquaman kind of broke that. I mean, before that you had like Green Lantern.
No, yeah, and that's our Canadian actor you're talking down to. He did better after with his other movies, but
it's because he went into the Marvel world.
So your company now, how many employees do you have? Do you have any partners? Are you on your own? How does this all work?
Yeah, so it's interesting when people always ask me, how big is your company? And it's kind of like, well, Define how many people are working with us?
Yeah. Essentially. So do you have, first off, do you have a partner? I always ask everybody, do you have a partner, or are you sole?
Yeah. So in one of the divisions of the company, I do have a partner, but our company has like multiple divisions.
So you essentially have an umbrella company, and then you have your divisions under it.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. So that's really structured well. Smart, good for you. That's good.
So I have divisions, like one is for real estate, and then I have one that is for personal trainers and those in health and fitness. Another is in the entrepreneurial space, for those that have courses and products. And then I have a division that is just my own personal branding.
Yeah, 100%. And you're doing very well with that. What was your breakthrough moment? In every company, there's that breakthrough moment where you get the right client or the right deal. What was the breakthrough moment? It was like, okay, this is stuff's really happening now. This company is really getting in the right direction. When was the breakthrough moment for you?
Yeah, so I think my very first big client, when I realized, okay, there was huge money to be made here. I remember I would listen to XM radio, and and up until this time, I was doing lead generation. I was doing helping people grow their social media. I was doing a little bit of everything, making good money. Yeah. But I remember I would hear this guy on XM radio, and he had an advertisement where he was a financial consultant or something like that. And it would say at the end of it, go to my website and get my book for free. Just cover the shipping and handling. And I remember I went to his website. I'm like, this website is horrible. Nothing was optimized properly. I looked at it. I'm like, he's doing great on the radio, but when he sends people to the website, it's not too good. So I would hear this ad 2-3 times a day. So I called up XM Radio and I said, how much does it cost for a 1-minute ad on this station? And they're like, $3,000 a minute, something like that. And I was like, wow, this guy, I started doing the math. I'm like, this guy could be spending $10,000 a day on this ad, and he's sending people to a website that is junk. And so I began to try to reach out to the individual of this company, began to try to send emails. They ignore me, and I found him on Facebook and sent him a message on Facebook. Look, I can really help you out. You need to optimize your site. It's probably a huge opportunity to do traffic on Facebook and social media platforms versus just strictly radio. He kind of brushed me off as like, hey, we're doing it this way. It's working fine. No big deal. That's the challenge, is when someone's doing good, it's hard to convince them that they can be doing great. Yeah. So what I did is I made an ad. I went to his profile and I found a picture of him at Disney World with a goofy hat on. I took that picture, put his name on the ad, and then put my phone number on the ad. And then I found out, okay, this is where he lives. This is his age. Here's his interests, because you can see all of that on Facebook. Yeah, it's crazy. And so I set up an ad that was targeting him. And so within 48 hours later, I get this message on Facebook Messenger. And it says something like, Paul, this is really creepy, but I want to talk to you. And that was my first big client that had a budget of spending, thousands of dollars a day. And that opened the door for us to really. Do you mind me asking, what was he selling? He was a financial consultant where he would send people his book for free, and it was about financial consulting, different things like that. And then he would get them on the phone call, get them in 401k plans and. Yeah. It's so incredible when you actually you look back and think of little things that happen in a business. And like you said, if you didn't actually take the initiative to do that, which a lot of people don't take the initiative. Yeah. And taking that initiative, this should be a lesson for everybody learning, young entrepreneurs. Like, if you see an opportunity, take initiative and don't think things are going to come to you. A lot of entrepreneurs, especially the newer generation, they have that mindset where they've been given everything by their parents, and they have that mindset where it's like,
I've started this business. I need my customers to come to me. They don't understand that sometimes it's that one break where you got to go out and get that customer, go out and get those individuals and hustle and push and push and push to get it right. So it's a great little lesson you just said there, because it's that little moment. If you probably forecast and change your whole business, right?
Absolutely.
It just opened up your eyes to a bigger market. It opened your eyes to utilizing 100%. Yeah, which is pretty amazing. Congrats on that aspect. So you've worked with Jeff Lopes. You've worked with a big group of individuals that have massive followings, big business coaches. How do you find the level of working with these? Do you find that some are harder to work with? Do you find there's some are?
It's interesting. So yeah, I've worked with, let's take two individuals, for example. I work with Jeff Lopes and Grant Cardone, which are two of the biggest names in the entrepreneur space, which are amazing guys doing incredible things. But they are two different types of individual. You got guys like Jeff Lopes, where Jeff Lopes is just, he's a more of a casual business guy, where you might look at him and think his mentality is the 4-hour work week. That type of stuff. And then you've got guys like Grant Cardone, where if you're not working 80 hours a week, you're a lazy bum. So you learn the different types of personalities and the different strategies and the ways that they operate. And you can't really say that one's right and one's wrong. That's just who they are and who their personality is, and the way that they operate the best. So it is definitely, I can learn, okay, this is how he does it. In working as having clients like that, you almost learn how to be a chameleon, where,
100%.
This guy, I have to work this way. I have to work fast. This guy, I have to test. This guy, I have to just take action and don't worry about testing. So you kind of have to be a chameleon and adapt to their personalities and the way that their business and how they operate.
Yeah. Growing up, do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have one brother.
And is he in the workspace, or is he an entrepreneur?
Yeah. He's an author. Has written a couple.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, he's 6 years older than me, and he's served in the military for 8 years, and somewhat of an entrepreneur.
And did you have any other entrepreneurs in your family, parents or anything like that, uncles, anybody that you kind of guided you?
Yeah, so my dad, I would say this, and you kind of alluded to it, that our generation was a work hard. I didn't, was brought up in a low income home, and it was work. It was like, you want money, go out and mow somebody's grass and get some money. You know what I mean? You want money, go out and deliver newspapers. So that entrepreneur, no one really said, hey, when I grow up, I want to be an entrepreneur. It's just like that
naturally came with it.
That entrepreneur is like, you got to do it yourself. Don't depend on other people. So my dad, it was kind of interesting to see the progression in my life, that there was a time growing up where we had absolutely nothing. It was dirt poor, trailer, food stamps.
Where did you grow up? Which state?
So I grew up in Florida.
Okay.
And we lived in a trailer for a good portion of my life, and food stamps. And this is before food stamps was a credit card. It was actually, stamps.
Yeah.
So there was that portion of my life, but I saw my parents go from, living in a trailer, being able to barely pay the bills, to owning their first home, to buying a home that was a duplex, and they rented out one side and they lived in the other side. Then, so they were
always progressing, creating and growing.
Yeah. To, my dad owned, in his later years, owned a dry cleaners, and I worked with him at the dry cleaners. So
he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. Was an entrepreneur.
It's so hard. Like I've had individuals ask me, how do you determine an entrepreneur? And I always say you could get a drug dealer selling at the corner. You could get an artist selling their paintings at a at a local market, like it's just a different level, right? And how much effort and how far do you want to go with it on a personal level as an entrepreneur? But yeah, and the only difference is I find entrepreneurs from our parents' generation, a lot of them were working in the business. They were working for the business, not working at the business. You understand? So it was like they would want to do everything 9 to 5. They would be the ones there morning to night. Now, as other entrepreneurs, we have staff. We learn how passive income is such an important part, and when we learn how to pass on stuff, which I think I'm assuming that's something you do, right?
Yeah. So I'll share with you one of my first discoveries that my dad was an entrepreneur. He was, when I was younger, he was an agricultural entrepreneur. And this was before it was legal. I was probably,
interesting.
I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. And he was out in the backyard watering these large plants. And I remember, he was paying really extra special attention to these plants and pruning them carefully and putting the leaves in bags and everything. And I remember walking up to him, hanging over his shoulder, interested in what he was doing. And he's like, "Go inside. You need to stay away from these. It's poison ivy." And I'm like thinking to myself, why is Dad watering the poison ivy and collecting the leaves and everything like that? Well, I later figured out when I got older that it was a different type of weed. It wasn't poison ivy. So yeah, my dad had his own little side hustle going on the side. So
good. It's crazy stories, huh? It's crazy stories. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah. Well, you got to do what you got to do to survive, right? It's survival.
What do you have to do to survive? This was in my backyard.
That's crazy, huh? When you think about that.
There was these plants growing about 6 feet tall. I remember they were bigger than me. I had to look up to them. So,
and the neighbors, no one ever said anything, huh?
The neighbors were probably doing it too. So,
yeah, it was a different era too, right?
It was a different era. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I know we're kind of a little short on time, so I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I asked all our guests, actually 3 questions, and then we're going to get into a different little segue here. But this one works with you. I ask every guest, superpower. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
Fly. Flying is an awesome. Just jump, boom, fly, go. That would be awesome.
Get you around traffic a lot faster.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the best superpowers.
In a few words, if you were to pass today, how would you want to be remembered by your closest friends and your relatives?
Someone that helped people. I think the legacy that I would want to leave outside of business, entrepreneur, and everything like that is just someone that would help people and impact people in a positive way. Whether it's in a business level, a lot of people only know one dimension of me, the business, but I do minister at a church. I travel the world and have helped establish orphanages and schools and things like that. So, man, I think the biggest impact we can make is helping other people.
I'm going to dive into that. I didn't know that about you. So let's quickly, 2 minutes, let's go dive into that. Building schools and all that. When's the last time you've done that, and how far impact have you done with that? Yeah.
So here on a local level, anytime there's any type of natural disaster like the hurricanes and things like that, I rally the community together and we get truckloads of supplies and send it off to, help in disaster relief. Yeah. So anytime there's a disaster, we're jumping on board to do that. I've worked in Haiti, Cuba, Colombia, probably India, several countries, just helping fly down there and set up orphanages and fund and help build buildings and everything like that.
Ain't that the most rewarding thing you could do?
Yeah. I tell you why, again, being brought up not having much, then when you're blessed and you have more than enough, you travel to a country like that where, a person might be making $20 a month And I remember always coming back from those countries, and I look in my, my ashtray in my car, and I see $5 there. I'm like, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So it helps keep you balanced. Yeah.
Balanced. One thing, I've done little similar stuff, but on a lower scale, but one thing I'd always say when I travel to third world countries is there's two things. They might not have the money, but they always have the whitest white clothes, and they always have a smile. Those kids always have a smile. They're happy. They're joyful for life. And I think this is a huge part of who I am. And this is one thing I'm doing right now is I work with entrepreneurs, but I work with entrepreneurs. I try to work with fathers that are entrepreneurs, and I try to build a connection of fatherhood and entrepreneurs. And I find that in our society, what has been lost in the last few years with entrepreneurs is they're so dedicated to building the businesses, and with social media, they're so prevalent in front of everybody. They have to show what they have, and it's forcing them almost to. They're not giving love to their kids; they're giving rewards to their kids, and I hate that, and that's something that's just despises me, and you see that a lot. Is like, oh, my son's done this, great, here's a present, instead of like, hey, that's awesome. Let's go spend the day together now. Let's go spend the day and hang out and talk about what you did. And I think that's that connection. And I think that's with these third world countries. They don't have the money. It's all about love. It's all about family. It's all about being together in the dinner table every night, whether they have one pot of soup for 12 people, it's that community. And I think we are losing it. And that's one thing I'm trying to, that's my goal right now, is trying to rebuild it with fathers and their children. But I find we love it. And in those third world countries, it's the love these kids get. They always have a smile on their face.
Yeah. In my own, aspirations, trying to help people, we have taken cases of toys down.
I love it.
For example. And I remember the first time we did that, it was because I was traveling through a little village there, and I saw some kids that had, it was a soccer ball that,
all taped up.
All taped up and everything like that.
Yeah,
Didn't even look like a soccer ball, but they were having fun in there. You always step back and you realize that they don't have all the things that we have, but they're happy. And so we can't necessarily try to impose our definition of happiness on those people. We think that happiness is a house, a car, education, all of these. But like you said, you can find some of the most happy people when 100%. They don't have much. So happiness starts on the inside, not what you possess.
That is the perfect way to end this segue. I love that. On our show notes, I'm going to put all the information. If you're an entrepreneur trying to up your social presence, we got the king here, Paul Getty, and I'm going to send all the information, how to get a hold of him, his social media links, everything like that. And honor. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to present on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. You have anything, last minute words you want to say to anyone?
No, thank you very much for having me on the show. You're doing amazing things, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, brother. It's a wrap for today. Great guest. Totally honored to have Paul on our show today. Love everything he's doing. If you guys enjoy this podcast as much as I did, tell your friends, tell your family. Trying to build something special here. Leave a review. 5 stars would be absolutely grateful. Until next week, everyone, always move forward.